dia 23 de julho, o Egito celebra a sua independência. E hoje nós estamos aqui na residência oficial do Embaixador para uma grande festa que vai acontecer daqui a pouco. Eu vou passar aí as imagens para vocês. Ao falar do Egito, a primeira frase que me veio em mente foi: Egito, o berço da civilização. Porque foi no Egito onde tudo começou. Os primeiros projetos históricos, arquitetônicos, médicos, odontológicos, culturais e as grandes pirâmides também. Teremos a entrevista aqui no programa com o embaixador do Egito no Brasil, Wael Aboulmagd, que fala pra gente sobre a COP27, que acontece no país dele este ano, fala pra gente sobre as relações bilaterais, comerciais. E eu agradeço a sua presença, a sua audiência sempre aqui comigo e conto com vocês aí nos próximos programas. Muito obrigada. Antes de começarmos a celebração egípcia, passaremos pela Embaixada do Líbano em Brasília, onde foi lançado um fundo humanitário com o intuito de ajudar o Líbano em sua reconstrução após momentos difíceis passados pelo país recentemente. No evento estiveram presentes várias autoridades de origem libanesa, inclusive o ex-presidente do Brasil, Michel Temer. Compareceu também o atual ministro de Relações Exteriores, Carlos França, o ministro da Saúde, Marcelo Queiroga, vários diplomatas do Itamaraty e várias autoridades do mundo árabe. A embaixadora do Líbano, Carla Jazar, agradeceu a presença de todos e principalmente o apoio do Brasil a este importante fundo humanitário. A Embaixada do Egito em Brasília celebrou em grande estilo os 70 anos da independência do país. O dia 23 de julho refere-se ao aniversário da Revolução Egípcia ocorrida no ano de 1952 e que levou à declaração da moderna república, encerrando o longo período do reinado. Trata-se do maior feriado da nação egípcia.
Distinguished representatives of the Brazilian government, members of parliament, your excellencies, ambassadors, and members of the diplomatic community in Brasília, fellow members of the Egyptian community across Brazil. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you here tonight as we commemorate the 70th anniversary of Egypt's National Day here in Brasília in person after having to celebrate virtually over the past 2 years. It is indeed a delight to once again return back to some normality in our lives and to resume engagement with all components of society across Brazil. And on this occasion, I wish to share with you a few remarks. Egypt and Brazil enjoy a long-standing relationship founded on several commonalities, namely their leadership role in supporting and speaking for the interests of developing nations in multilateral fora, their shared commitment to international law and the peaceful settlement of disputes, and their historically leading roles in their respective regions as advocates of cooperation, maintenance of peace, and partnership.
E eu estou aqui agora com Antônio Aversa, que é um galerista, também colecionador de arte e dono da Mercato, que fica no Gilberto Salomão, aqui em Brasília. Ele vai falar um pouco pra gente sobre a arte egípcia. Antônio, obrigada pela presença aqui hoje na Data Nacional do Egito. Fala pra gente um pouco tudo que você sabe aí sobre arte egípcia.
Arte egípcia, eu sou um grande apreciador, estudo um pouco. É uma arte milenar que persiste até hoje, né, na nossa história. Inclusive aqui em Brasília, poucas pessoas sabem, mas a maior coleção de arte egípcia arqueológica da América Latina está aqui em Brasília, que é do Aristos Rodopoulos, que é um grande amigo. Nós já fizemos exposições em conjunto, vamos fazer uma no próximo semestre, que está entrando agora. E eu sou um grande apreciador. É um prazer estar hoje aqui nesse evento como colecionador e apreciador dessa arte tão bacana.
So, Ambassador, thank you for being here with me today. It's a pleasure talking to you. I would like to ask you about the important day today. We're celebrating 23rd of July, which is an important date in Egypt. And also, if you can talk to us also about the Brazil and Egypt bilateral relations.
Very good. Thank you for being with us. Yes, today we're commemorating the 70th anniversary of the 1952 revolution, which ended the monarchy and started the modern Egyptian Republic. So this is our national day we're celebrating now in Brazil, as we are around the world. But of course, the bilateral relation between Egypt and Brazil is a historic one. It extends many, many years, and it's based on shared commonalities. Both countries are the major players in their regions. Both countries play a significant role in peace and stability. And both countries have a history of standing up for the rights of developing countries, for speaking on their behalf in multilateral fora. So we're building on all of that, of course. I'm pleased to be here now for over 2 years, building this relationship. It is a very diverse relationship because Brazil is the largest country in its region. Egypt is the largest country in our region. So we influence our regions in multiple ways. The trade relation has grown over the years, thanks to some part to the Egypt-Mercosur free trade agreement. But also we had some extensive visits this year from Brazil to Egypt and Egypt to Brazil. I'll be speaking about that in my speech a little bit later. But indeed, Admiral Flavio Rocha was in Egypt with a large delegation of businessmen, of people from Apex, from Ibratur, from many organizations, from the military. And prior to that, we had the Minister of Agriculture visiting Egypt. So our relationship is large and diverse, but it's not only based on trade. We have the cultural relationship, which is a very strong component. We also think that the potential for both countries to move beyond just trade exists and is very, very promising. So we're working, your embassy in Cairo and myself over here, to broaden the scope of the relationship, to add value, to create jobs, to have mutual and joint investments, to allow Egyptian products to enter South America and Latin America, but also Brazilian products to enter Africa and the Arab world through Egypt. So the bilateral relationship is strong, it is healthy, it is growing, and it can grow much, much more because the potential is there.
All right, thank you so much. Good to know that. And Ambassador, you mentioned to me a couple of months ago when we met that you were back in Egypt to deal with some things like organization about the COP27.
Yes.
How is the process going on and when is it going to be?
Okay. Well, COP now is the largest multilateral event for negotiations and making decisions on the issue of climate change. And everyone knows the importance of climate change. It is the challenge of this generation. It's the biggest challenge for humanity at this time. And we all countries in the world have a responsibility to show more ambition, to reduce their emissions, and to adapt to climate change. So Egypt has been given the privilege of hosting COP27. This will take place in Sharm el-Sheikh, in the Sinai of Egypt, in November 2022. It will have a presidential leaders section on the 7th and 8th of November. And of course, we've extended an invitation to President Bolsonaro to represent Brazil at that event. But all heads of state are invited. This is a very important moment for humanity. Time is running out and we have so much to do. Our preparations have been going on for a year. It is a big challenge, of course, hosting maybe 30 or 40,000 participants. But the COP is now much more than a negotiation process for member states and governments only. All stakeholders, the business community, the banks, private sector, women, youth, indigenous peoples, everyone has a role to play. And that's why it is a mega event, but we need to take decisions on the ground. We need to implement what we all decided to do. There's a responsibility for developed countries because they have the larger emissions, but also even we as developing countries would like to contribute, play our fair role, bearing in mind that we have the right to continue to grow, but also and eliminate poverty. So it is a difficult negotiation, but everyone must rise to the occasion and do their fair share in order for us to save the planet for future generations.
Oh, that's wonderful. Very good to know that also. And Ambassador, how about the big museum?
That's something, of course, we were hoping it to be opened last year, but because of COVID and many other factors, we've postponed it a little bit. The target is by the end of this year. It's going to be the world's largest museum dedicated to one civilization. It's called the GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum. It will be near the pyramids. It's an ultra-modern architecture, but it will have the largest collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts. But also we've opened a number of museums over the past year, or refurbished existing ones. There was the showing of the parade of the mummies, moving from one museum to a new one. But other tourist venues have been upgraded and updated, taking advantage of the COVID slowdown in tourism, of course, but now we're ready, we're open for business, we're receiving increasing numbers of Brazilian tourists, and that's something that we're very proud of and happy to see. But more importantly, we're hoping by the end of this year to have a direct flight between Egypt, Cairo and Sao Paulo, a direct Egypt Air flight. I think this will be a game changer, because it will not only help tourism, it will help business, it will make business easier, travel, cargo, politicians. All of these things, I think, will benefit from the existence of a direct flight rather than having to jump from one capital or one city to the other to make it from Egypt to Brazil or Brazil to Egypt. So it's going to be an exciting year, and hopefully we'll give a good push to the bilateral relations.
I wish to be one of these next tourists in Egypt.
You have to be on the maiden flight, the first flight from
so.
Sao Paulo to Cairo.
I hope so. Ambassador.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. I'm really serious. I wish to visit Egypt one day.
Hopefully.
It's a wish that I have from long years ago, but I think it will come true one day.
Well, hopefully.
And I'll bring news back from there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My pleasure.
In a country as old as time, some things are here to stay. Like the Egyptian sun, that will always be as warm as our smile. Like the breath of fresh air, that will always be as refreshing as our Nile. The great is still as great. And the friends are even friendlier. The crystal clear water will always unfold wonders. The soft sands of Egypt will always hug your feet. And just as always, sunrises will leave you speechless, and sunsets will speak to your heart. Some things in Egypt, significant, precious things, are still the same. The same great feelings. Experience Egypt.